Hi everyone, I'm Anna Dakey, Director, Counsellor and Speaker at Journeys, and I'm here today with Chris Mann, who is the Director of Lifelong Leaders and Pastor at Mawson Lakes Community Church. It's really good to be here with you today, and if you haven't seen us together doing this video before, then welcome. We've been doing some videos about self-care in this time of crisis, and today we're going to be talking about leadership and self-care during this crisis as well. And today we're going to specifically be talking about how as leaders we can become triggered because, you know, we're human and we have the same things that the average person is dealing with as part of this crisis as well. And so I wanted to ask Chris today. He has got a lot of experience in leadership, a lot of knowledge, is a John Maxwell team leader, can't remember what it's called, facilitator, coach, sorry. And so like just so much knowledge and experience with coaching leaders and being a great leader himself as well. So Chris, thank you for being here today. It's great that you've been able to join us.
Thank you.
I wanted to start by, we're going to jump in pretty kind of heavy straight away and talk about triggers. I don't know about for you as a leader, but for me as a leader, I find that, as I said, I'm just like any other human and I get triggered by, you know, in this sense with the pandemic, there's been things that has been a struggle for me. I'm curious about, do you know what your triggers are in this situation, and why do you think it's important for leaders to know what their triggers are?
So, do I know what my triggers are? I know what some of them are, and I know what enough of them are to know that I've probably got a lot. So I'll just answer the first bit of that. So there are four that come to mind immediately with me being triggered. The first would probably be overwhelm of not just information, but things to do in one hit. I'm a one thing at a time kind of person. I like to think that if you give me one job, I'm going to do it and do it well. But if you ask me to, if you present to me a lot of things that I need to get done in a short period of time, that I'm actually sometimes, and this has happened recently, I run the risk of tuning out actually as a person. This actually happened it'd be maybe 2 weeks ago now. Where I was in a meeting with a couple of my team, and we were going through a lot of the things that we need to do, and there just is a lot of things to do. And I actually tuned out to what was going on around me, thankfully, because we have good, open, honest relationships that we have developed. One of the team said, "Chris, are you still with us? Are you still present here? You look like you're just staring out in the distance." And I'd say, "No, actually, I'm not. Can we go back and can we just talk about that first thing that we mentioned, and can I write something down, and then can we go on to the next thing?" Because the person who was facilitating the meeting was going through things very, very quickly. So that's a trigger for me, and if I don't pay attention to that, then I actually don't serve the people around me very well. So that's probably the first trigger. Another trigger for me, and I don't think I'm alone in this one, is when other people have what I think is an unrealistic or unfair expectation on me. If they expect me to respond to a particular way, or if they want to tell me how to do my job, and you can hear in the way I say that and in my voice that I have issues around that. That's something that I still have to work through. When someone tells me, you know, "Chris, this is what you should be doing with your time," or "Chris, this is, you know, there's this problem and you need to go fix it," that's a trigger for me. And I have to deal with that by actually taking a step back normally, and also actually having good boundaries with people and putting their expectations back on them, because they've and so I actually had a conversation just yesterday with a lady who wanted me to do something, and I put back on her. I said, "I can't actually do that right now, but you've identified a need and you can solve this need." another one, and all of these are recent because they've all happened in the light of this crisis. I had another leader 3 weeks ago maybe assume that I had some pretty poor intentions in a decision that I made. And I was actually angry about that one for 3 days. I spent 3 days being angry about that. And again, thankfully, people in my life talked me through that and said, and checked in with me regularly. How are you going with this issue? Because they knew that the accusation that I faced in the decision for the motivation for the decision wasn't true. They were part of the decision. But they could see the emotional response that I had to it that needed to be worked through. So those three things, they trigger, and one of the things I get triggered into in a crisis is workaholism. I can easily get into that if I'm not careful. So there are three triggers, and I guess, and something I get triggered into very easily in a crisis.
Absolutely. And thank you for your courage in being honest with us. You know, as a leader, sometimes we need other leaders to be able to hear their story, to be able to relate to our own challenges and our own triggers in that. And I think, you know, particularly the expectation stuff, you're definitely not alone in that. I think that was one of the biggest things for me heading into my burnout was expectations and expectations that I had on others, expectations people had on me, expectations I had on me. You know, there's a lot that can come up in that. And as you said, being able to set some boundaries and articulate things to maybe put some expectations back onto other people and can be really helpful. So you're, you know, you've shared some triggers that you're aware of. Why do you think, I guess two questions, you can answer it however you want. One is, why do you think it's important for leaders in general to know about their triggers? And how does knowing their triggers help you to do well as a leader in a crisis?
So why is knowing triggers important? Every time I'm triggered, and this is true of all leaders, it's true of all of us, every time we're triggered, we move out of responding and thinking things through to just a reaction and an emotional reaction. And you know, those flight, fight, fear, anger, we go back to things, I find I go back to things that I did as a kid, ways I responded or saw other people respond when I was young. And every time I'm triggered, I become defensive, which means that I'm actually not thinking anymore, especially and this is very dangerous as a leader, I'm no longer thinking about other people. And I'm actually not even really thinking of my best, what's best for me. I'm just thinking about right now and I'm not even really thinking, I'm just reacting. And I find, and I think it's important for leaders to know their triggers and to know when they are being triggered, so that the earlier you identify the fact that you're triggered, the sooner you can act in a way to mitigate the damage that you may have already done, or to stop damage being done. And I think it's not good to know triggers, and also to be willing to share them especially with your team of leaders, if you're working in a team of leaders, because they can see that what's going on and they can stop you before you're able to stop yourself. And that happened for me because I have such great leaders around me, so that they're able to say, Chris, are you okay? What's going on for you? So a leader needs to know that, because they can stop the damage, but then also they can move so much faster into something constructive, and they can identify what it is about that trigger that upsets them and use it for good reasons, because there is a good reason there somewhere. You just need to uncover it.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you on all of those, and especially, you know, being able to learn to respond as opposed to react or just be in the moment, and being able to kind of go, well, actually, if I'm aware of this, then I can mitigate how that can impact my team and myself and, you know, others around me. Yeah. So what would you say you're doing well as a leader in the crisis at the moment?
So I think there are a few things I'm doing well, and I don't think it's egotistical to talk about what I'm doing well. I think I'm doing well at being in what I would see as my strength zone, which the things that I'm good at is seeing the opportunities in my strength zone. So just for instance, as a pastor, one of my gifts, one of my strengths I see is connecting with people who aren't normally part of a church community. They might have faith, they might not have faith, they might have been hurt by a church before and no longer interested in church, but they still, you know, God's at work in their life and they know and they recognize it. And so I look for opportunities at what I'm good at in this time and go, how can we use this and what are the opportunities connected to that? So I'm good at, I think, identifying opportunities. I think one of my strengths also is in communication and connecting with people. So I think I'm doing pretty well at connecting with people and communicating, and that's happening, for instance, in this, and it's happening in some other videos that I've produced, and also my church's worship services. And then also the times where I am, you know, distant still, you know, maintaining that appropriate distance between people, but face to face with people, communicating and genuinely connecting with them. I see that as something that I'm doing quite well. Something that I became aware of, I wasn't aware of this until perhaps January this year. So before this even hit, and I've been able to use it during this time, is giving stability to other leaders who are stressed. So I had two different leaders say to me individually that they appreciate the stability that I bring them by them being able to talk to me about what they're facing as a leader or what their organisation is going through. And then two other leaders were face to face and said that, and that happened in the space of 3 days. And I'm like, oh wow, that's something that I bring to the table, is a sense of stability and calm in a stressful circumstance. Yeah. And so since this happened, you know, just over a month ago, since the virus happened just over a month ago here in Australia, I've been more intentional about bringing that to the people that I spend time with, of going, okay, I have a calmness and a stability to bring. So I'll bring that, and I'll bring that through listening and through paying attention and through engaging people where they're at, especially leaders, and letting them know that they're doing a good job, and that when they second guess themselves, as many leaders are during this time, are they doing the right thing with the way that they're responding? Being able to point out to them they are doing well, they are responding well, they are giving good direction or good care for their teams, and knowing that gives them a sense of stability in themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, it is an odd question to be asked, like, what are you doing well? But I think it's important for, as leaders, to give ourselves permission to look at those things and to celebrate them, because, you know, as we've been talking about, being in a crisis and leading in a crisis can be really hard. And yet there are things that you have as strengths, Chris, but also leaders have as strengths that can really shine during a crisis moment. And so I think it's important that we remember those and recognize them and celebrate them and step into them. You know, like you said, you being able to be a calm and an encouragement to other leaders, which, by the way, we all need to be encouraging each other as leaders and being kind to each other instead of having such high expectations that we feel like, you know, discouraged because of what we're trying to do. Again, none of us have been through this. And so as leaders, we need to, you know, support each other. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story with us. And again, your vulnerability and courage to be able to be open and honest with us about how you're leading, but also your knowledge about, you know, how triggers do actually impact leaders and our teams. So thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome.